Hey everyone, and welcome back. We've journeyed through ancient empires and navigated the complex tapestry of the Middle Ages. Now, get ready to witness a world on the brink of profound transformation. We are stepping into the early modern period, an era stretching roughly from 1450 to 1750. This isn't just another chapter in a history book. It's the period that shattered old certainties, connected continents in ways never seen before, and laid the very foundations for the world we live in today. Think of it as the explosive prequel to the Industrial Age. Over the next few centuries, humanity would experience a series of revolutions, not just in politics, but in art, religion, science, and exploration. So buckle up, because we're about to explore the forces that reshaped the globe, starting with a spectacular rebirth of culture and ideas. This era is like a massive four-act play, and each act changed the world. We have the Renaissance, a dazzling explosion of art and thought. Then comes the Reformation, which would permanently fracture the religious landscape of Europe. Following that, the scientific revolution fundamentally altered how we understand the universe and our place in it. And finally, the age of exploration, when ships set sail for unknown horizons, forever linking the fates of distant peoples. It was a time of breathtaking genius, daring adventure, and intense conflict. It's the age of Leonardo da Vinci and William Shakespeare, of Martin Luther and Galileo Galilei, of Christopher Columbus and Queen Elizabeth I. These weren't just isolated events. They were interconnected movements, each feeding into the next, creating a cascade of change that would sweep across the planet. To kick things off, we're heading to the sun-drenched city-states of Italy, where the first act of our story begins. Welcome to the Renaissance. The word itself means rebirth, and that's exactly what it was. Starting in the 14th century, primarily in bustling Italian hubs like Florence, Venice, and Rome, a powerful new energy began to stir. After centuries where the focus was overwhelmingly on the divine and the afterlife, scholars, artists, and thinkers began to look backward for inspiration, specifically to the golden ages of ancient Greece and Rome. They unearthed long-lost manuscripts, studied classical sculptures, and marveled at the architectural genius of antiquity. It was as if they were rediscovering a forgotten treasure trove of human knowledge and creativity. This wasn't about rejecting faith. Rather, it was about rebalancing the scales. It was a cultural awakening, a moment when the world seemed to burst forth in vibrant color after a long, somber winter. The art, the literature, the philosophy, everything was infused with a new sense of vigor, curiosity, and a profound appreciation for the beauty of the world here and now. At the very heart of the Renaissance was a revolutionary intellectual movement called Humanism. This was a game-changer. For 1,000 years, the dominant intellectual framework had been scholasticism, which sought to reconcile classical philosophy with Christian theology. Humanism took a different path. It celebrated humanity. Humanists believed in the immense potential, dignity, and worth of the individual. Their motto could have been, "Man is the measure of all things." They shifted the focus from a life lived solely in preparation for the next world to a life of achievement, learning, and fulfillment in this one. They championed education, not just in theology, but in the studia humanitatis, grammar, rhetoric, history, poetry, and moral philosophy. They argued that by studying the classics, people could become more virtuous, more articulate, and more effective citizens. This new perspective didn't just stay in dusty libraries. It fueled the creativity of artists, the ambitions of rulers, and the curiosity of explorers. It was a fundamental shift in worldview that placed human experience, reason, and ingenuity center stage. And what a stage it was! The Renaissance produced some of the most iconic figures and timeless masterpieces in all of human history. When you think of the Renaissance, you probably picture the art, and for good reason. Artists were no longer just craftsmen. They were celebrated as geniuses. Take Leonardo da Vinci. He was the ultimate Renaissance man, a painter, sculptor, architect, musician, scientist, inventor, and more. His Mona Lisa, with its enigmatic smile, and The Last Supper with its profound human drama, are more than just paintings. They are deep psychological studies. Then there's Michelangelo. A brooding and passionate sculptor and painter, he gave us the breathtaking statue of David, a perfect embodiment of humanist ideals of strength and beauty, and the Bue, awe-inspiring ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, a monumental work that tells the story of creation itself. But it wasn't just art. In the realm of political thought, Niccolo Machiavelli penned The Prince, a brutally realistic guide to acquiring and maintaining power that separated politics from conventional morality, a move that continues to be debated to this day. These figures and countless others were the rock stars of their time, pushing boundaries and forever changing their fields. Now imagine all this incredible creative and intellectual energy, the art, the new ideas, the rediscovered texts, and then imagine pouring gasoline on the fire. That's essentially what happened around the year 1440. A German goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg developed a technology that would, without exaggeration, change the world forever: the movable type printing press. Before Gutenberg, books were painstakingly copied by hand, usually by monks. A single book could take months or even years to produce, making them incredibly rare and expensive, accessible only to the wealthiest elites and the clergy. Gutenberg's invention changed everything. Suddenly, information could be reproduced quickly, accurately, and cheaply. The price of books plummeted. For the first time in history, knowledge was no longer the exclusive property of the powerful. Ideas could now travel farther and faster than any army or caravan. The printing press was the internet of its day. The impact of the printing press was immediate and staggering. Literacy rates began to climb as books became more available to merchants, artisans, and even some farmers. Universities and scholars could now share their work with a much wider audience, accelerating scientific discovery and intellectual debate. The humanist ideas we just talked about, which had been circulating among a small circle of Italian intellectuals, could now spread like wildfire across Europe, inspiring similar cultural rebirths in Germany, France, England, and Spain. But perhaps its most explosive impact was on religion. The ability to mass-produce texts meant that people could read the Bible for themselves, in their own languages, and form their own interpretations. This directly challenged the Church as authority as the sole interpreter of Scripture and set the stage for the next great upheaval of the early modern period, the Protestant Reformation. Gutenberg didn't just invent a machine. He democratized knowledge and unleashed a tidal wave of information that would reshape society from the top down. So let's recap where we are. We've entered the early modern period, an age of dramatic change. We've seen how the Renaissance, born in Italy, sparked a massive cultural and intellectual rebirth by looking back to the classical world of Greece and Rome. At its core was humanism, looking back to the classical world of Greece and Rome. At its core was humanism, a massive cultural and intellectual, a philosophy that celebrated human potential and achievement, inspiring titans like Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Machiavelli. And all of this was amplified 1,000 times over by Gutenberg's printing press, a revolutionary invention that spread these new ideas across Europe and armed ordinary people with unprecedented access to information. This is just the beginning. The forces unleashed during the Renaissance, the questioning of authority, the focus on the individual, and the rapid flow of information are about to collide with the established religious and political order. In our next episode, we'll dive headfirst into the tumult of the Reformation and see how one monk as protest would splinter Christendom and redraw the map of Europe forever. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. See you next time.